You're very welcome back to the Daily Rundown with me, Ashleigh Talbot, and my guests tonight, Stephen Lindsay and Gaye Jones. Sticking with the news stories of the day, the Foreign Affairs Committee has today said the government gave the impression of prioritising trade and security with China, Saudi Arabia and Egypt over issues like human rights. Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond has said improving human rights was a core function of the Foreign Office, but the committee has suggested that the actions and words of ministers in the Foreign Office have undermined the excellent human rights work carried out by the department. Giving evidence to the same committee in October, Sir Simon MacDonald, the Foreign Office's most senior civil servant, said human rights was not one of our top priorities. So do you think our foreign policy is more about money than human rights? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item.
Yeah, no. I think we all do it to an extent where if we close our eyes, it's not happening.
Yeah.
We don't have to look at it. We go and buy a cheap top from Primark, or
Enjoy some of the crude oil imported by...
But we would
Saudi
all
Arabia.
sit over a chat and a drink and go, it's terrible, you can't have children taking mobile phones apart in foreign countries. That's outrageous, that would be terrible. I think we kind of over the years have all become quite accountable.
Is it time to sort of address our own responsibility, I suppose, in terms of what cheap consumer goods or whatever? Do we sort of really need to having that conversation as well?
Well, yeah.
Is it? I mean, the key thing I think that we forget because we're British and we're in Britain is how important we are in this respect, because we forget, because we don't see it, the signal that's sent out by the British government when they do or don't do something to a lot of other countries who then use it to justify their behaviour. So, for example, the big debate that's been taking place, prompted by the Tory government on repealing the Human Rights Act, is, in my opinion, complete nonsense, full stop. But even if there was some justification in it, you've got to think of what it says to the rest of the world. So you find that other countries then say, well, look at what Britain have done, and therefore we are whatever. And the specific as regards this particular story is, it's crucially important that with countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt and China, that the British government is very firm as regards human rights issues, because it isn't about, some minor aspects. There are people dying because of
to produce goods
human rights, and it's not just the goods. You're right in that, but there's people dying because of
ideology.
Saudi is probably is one of the most extreme. Some of the stuff that they do, and people have been beheaded in Saudi for lifting this cup up the wrong way around or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but only marginally. It's it's a hugely important thing, and the British government needs to be up there as waving the flag, not necessarily the Union Jack, but the human rights flag.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's actually in this committee's report. They've stated that signs and symbols are important, and that's exactly what you've just been saying in terms of if other countries are sort of, the world watches, and now more than ever in the sort of increasingly globalized social media style world. Yes, the countries that have got an appalling record on human rights, how do they continue to exist? But then also we don't have to be complicit in what they're doing by, buying the goods or whatever. But then we've all become so dependent on it, as you've said. So what do we do?
But it's not even buying the goods. Take Saudi as the example. We are buying the oil, but we're selling them billions of pounds worth of arms. That is a trading issue. The Britain, Saudi, America, Saudi, whatever relationships are driven by trade, and we owe it to everyone in the world, sounds rather grand, but there's some truth in it, to actually be saying there's lines here and you need to get on the right side of those lines, or we'll take the economic consequences.
Yeah.
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 So morality over money is frankly, I would kind of be a bit astonished and disappointed if we hadn't come to that conclusion, really. So it's a bit strange, and it can be very strange for people like us who are not in government to have to consider, well, why is this even an issue?
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I don't know. So you have to prioritise certain issues, but then that's not to say that you have to completely disregard trade, but there's, is there a middle ground? Can there ever be a compromise on human rights?
I think there needs to be a middle ground. We can sit here and, be very firm on these things, and I've just done it, of course, earlier. But you do have to accept that, it's a bit like personal relationships. You might decide to yourself, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this and I'm going to do that when I meet this person. And then you meet them, and the conversation actually goes in a different way because you've interacted. There's an element in this which is about countries interacting, and that is never an easy thing. So no one's saying it's easy, but there are some fundamentals in amongst it, hopefully.
Yeah, but if Britain has said that they're going to back all these human rights acts, I think there's something like 75, but then turn a little bit of a blind eye.
That's it, yeah.
When it's financially viable, or we can trade and it can be cheaper, and we sort of suddenly going, oh well, we won't really look at that bit, but we're going to be very morally sturdy about X, A, B, and C.
It's a bit of a strange one, and no easy conclusions as ever. But you do kind of hope that people would at least stick by what they say they're going to do, practice what they preach. The Foreign Office has recently doubled the funding for the Foreign Affairs Committee, but seems to be disregarding its suggestions. And
the good news in this story is that there's actually a committee that's saying we're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing about the way Britain's governmental system or parliamentary system.
Yeah, because there's always someone ready to tell you that you're doing it wrong.
It's an official organisation. It's not Amnesty saying it, and they are, but it's an official committee in the parliamentary system saying, hold on a minute, you've called this wrong, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So more regulatory oversight is what we're saying. No. So I think perhaps time to move on to the next story then, which concerns the number of police officers and staff taking long-term sick leave for psychological reasons has increased by over a third in the past 5 years. Despite overall employee numbers falling, the number of police officers and police staff taking time off went up from 4,544 in 2010 to 6,129 in 2015. In October 2014, the government allocated £10 million to help support emergency services personnel and volunteers, but focusing on mental health, physical recuperation and bereavement support. Mike Penning, the Minister for Policing, told BBC Radio 5 Live today. So it suggests that despite the cuts, people are taking sick leave, but I wonder if it's not a despite there, but a because of perhaps.
I would say it's just it's so upsetting. They've cut it and cut it and cut it, and you need all the kind of troops there, and then they can't do the job properly because there isn't enough people to do the job. So they're getting stressed and they're getting terribly bogged down, and then they end up having time off on the sick because they're not looking after themselves, and then who loses out?
Yeah, exactly. It's not for want of trying.
No,
I'm certain that the police services as a whole are doing the best they can, but with staffing numbers having fallen, it is going to make itself felt in other areas, and policing is. It's not a desk job as a rule. No. It's a high stress environment, and so it does beg the question: the amount of support that's being offered to them in the first place, and if it's been funded so recently, why is there still such a problem? So.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't think I know anyone that's not in the police service who says, "I wish I was." Most of us, maybe all of us, in fact, say, "I couldn't do that," and. There is a lot of truth in that. It's a stressful, difficult thing to do. So they do need the support, and this isn't a case of there's just a little change in the statistic, in the figures. It's a big enough change. It's a bit like, for me, it's a little bit like homelessness statistics. You can argue about the specific statistics on homelessness because it's not measured perfectly, but when everything is saying homelessness is going through the roof, excuse that terrible pun, if that's what it should be called, but if it's rising drastically, that is the truth, and you can see it, we know it's the truth. And in this instance, as regards stress levels and the results of stress in the police force, these sorts of figures aren't marginal. It's not just a little. Therefore, the chances are this is actually happening. And it's, it can't be good because there's cutbacks and then there's people that are off sick.
It wasn't many years ago where we were, the government was saying policing is something we need, it's something we've got to have, it's something we're really passionate about, we've got to get crime down, and then cut the amount of police doing the job.
So yeah, it's those two things that don't seem to be particularly reconcilable. I mean, one of the police association, the mental health association within the police, has ascribed it quite specifically to that reduction in staffing levels has had serious knock-on effects. But that's going to affect the quality of policing as well, isn't it? Because the ones that are that are still working, obviously, which is the majority of them, are not going to be able to do as good a job because their colleagues are off, they themselves are stressed.
That's it.
You can't follow things through, and you can't. What are you physically meant to do if you've only got time to do 10 jobs a day, but you've got a workload of 20? And then the next day, and then the next, it's just like
builds
a knock-on
up,
effect,
and
doesn't
there's again, unfortunately, as ever with the stories on the Daily Rundown, there is no easy solution. But it's time for another break now, and we'll see you again in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away.